Hello friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Katja and this is the first part in the series of me making a dress for a Titanic dinner. After the first decade of the 1900s, the fashion changed from the curvy S-bend silhouette into more statuesque straight silhouette that emulated empire fashions from the Regency era. This required a new corset that created a smooth silhouette over the hips. This corset from the collection of Espoo City Museum is approximately from this era. It might be a few years younger, as it is clearly an underbust corset having no bust cups. Like previous corsets, it has a busk and the lacing at the back. However, the corset is much longer. There are garters attached to the bottom of the corset. The fabric is cotton sateen and the lining is thinner cotton fabric. The boning channels are made out of cotton twill and there's a waist stay ribbon quite high up. The long basting stitches hold the decorative lace in place. For my Titanic gown, the first step was to make a proper corset. It just happens that I have this book published in 1912, the year Titanic sank, and it has a pattern for a fashionable corset. So let's try to make this. The pattern is in miniature form with all the necessary measurements given. The easiest way to enlarge this is to lay my pattern paper over my cutting mat, which has a grid. There are a total of 9 pattern pieces. Now I must adjust this to something close to my size. The waist should be approximately here, where the hip gores end. This is about 12.5 inches. Of course this is only half a corset, so we need to multiply this by 2 and add about 2 inches gap for the lacing. This gives about 27 inches, that is about 69 centimeters. My waist is about 78 centimeters, so I need to widen this about 9 centimeters. That means that I need to add about 4.5 centimeters extra for the pattern pieces. So, let's do that. I try to divide the 4.5 centimeters evenly across the pieces. With these straight edges, I just write a reminder to add a bit width when cutting out the pattern pieces. I mainly concentrate on widening the waist, but this technique naturally adds a bit to the bust as well. That I will compensate later. However, for this piece, I slash the pattern piece from the waist area to the bust and spread the pattern piece open like this. I tape this in place and then smooth out the hip curve. I have found out that the cotton twill curtains from IKEA are perfect material for corsets. This cost me a total of 7 euros. I start by making a mock-up. Here are all the pieces with the seam allowances marked with a friction pen. I sewed the mock-up together and added bones to check the fit. So, here is the mock-up. It fits fairly well. I'm going to make just some small modifications. So, right now I have used zip ties as boning, so they are not very sturdy. So I think this wrinkles a bit here, so I could either take a bit away from here or see like when I put stronger bones here whether it fixes itself. But some fitting issues I have. These cups are a little bit too big. So I'm going to take a tiny bit away from here. Like so. And it's here. Like so. Not much here, but then I have plenty of extra fabric here, so I think I need to, at least this one doesn't need to widen at the bottom, so I'll take that off. Of course, I don't have a busk either, I just have a one bone here, so it's going to get a little bit neater than when I have the busk. But I'm going to straighten these, so then it's a little bit narrow there. And let's see. Here it's it might be just a tiny bit long, because then I have this that goes below my bum, and I'm not sure whether it should be. So I could shorten it a bit or not. I could take a little bit from here, and that will pull it in a bit. So if I straighten this seam here, and do something like this. Oh, that's completely twisted, but okay, I had to change the memory card, but yeah, let's continue. So what I did, that I ripped this seam open, and you can see that, yeah, I need some space here. So this is supposed to go straight down. So I'll add some extra here, and perhaps here, and perhaps I don't actually have to take so much away from there. If I do this here, I just should sew a little bit straighter seams, but actually take away the extra I put here. Yeah, it looks much better. So I added here extra width. No, actually I hid it here, not. But now it looks better if I take it off. And this bone goes straight down. So I should do this. Otherwise I think it's good. Now I mark all the changes to the pattern pieces. Some of the bones at the front were a bit too long, so I marked where they should end instead. Oh, and one other thing. I noticed that the bust cups start way too low for me, so I added length to the pattern pieces and shortened the cups. I checked that the seam lengths match and add some helpful alignment points. I only added length to the front pieces, so I modified this side piece to match. Here I'm marking the seam allowances once again with a friction marker that is easily removed with heat. I am lining the corset with the same fabric, so I have cut each of the pattern pieces 4 times. I ordered a busk and the boning online. Most of the boning is so-called artificial whalebone that is plastic. I also have flat metal boning that is going to support the lacing at the back. Now, let's start sewing the corset together. I work methodically and first connect smaller pieces to each other before tackling the long vertical seams. I narrow the seam allowances down and notch the curves. Then I press all the seam allowances open. Now I must add the busk. I'm marking the center front edge first. Then I mark the spots where the busk loops need to go through. Now, let's attach the busk. Before sewing the busk in place, I took a little break to think about the garter situation. I found vintage garters from a thrift store, but I only have 2 pairs, while my pattern calls for 3. Using just 2 was not historically incorrect, so now I just have to figure out how to place those 2 pairs. And while we have the pattern pieces spread out on the floor, let's mark the boning channels that go on both sides of the lacing at the back. I sew the boning channels and then make holes for the lacing. I cut the flat steel bones in right lengths and sand out the ends. Now I attach the garters. So here is where I'm now. Yesterday evening I put my corset on this dress form, which doesn't fit very well. I'm a little bit worried how much these hips seem to bulge, but I think adding the bones will fix it. I basted in the basque. I have to now sew it around so that it stays in place. I marked the position of bones. What I did, because my pattern only has the position where the bones end, I marked the position, but then I used this boning I have, and I used this to sort of trace the path that the bone will take, so that I could draw the center of the boning channels. Because all these bones come in pairs, and I have 2 bones here, 2 bones here, then I have 2 bones on this seam, then I have 2 bones here, and the next 2 bones are not going down together, but there is one diagonal bone here and the one that goes along this seam. And now next I will sew the boning channels and add the bones. I hope I have enough boning. If not, I will have to use some cable ties or something. But let's hope that I have enough. I have 6 meters of this, and if it's not enough, yeah, then I'll use something else. I think these boning channels will also fasten these 2 layers together, so I'll try to match the seams so that I don't have any wrinkling later on. I have made holes to the outer fabric with an awl and pushed the left side of the basque in place. Now I carefully sew around the edge. Here I realized that my presser foot can't go over the bumps at the basque, so I need to switch to the zipper foot. I sew along the seams to attach the lining and the outer fabric together. These seams also partly do the work of boning channels. I cut all the bones and marked the position of the boning channels. Then I sew the boning channels in place. Now we just slide the bones in. I finished the top and bottom edges with bias powder. To finish the corset, I'll add some lace to the top edge. Here is the finished corset. I added some silk ribbon to decorate the top edge and the garters. The corset is ready and let's put it on. I have more or less the equivalent of the underwear of the Titanic period. I have a chemise that is made out of linen, and I have drawers that are also linen. So the lacing of course goes to the back. Okay. Then I of course need my silk stockings. Thank you for watching. See you next time when I make the gown for the Titanic dinner. Bye!